Hello and welcome to my channel where I talk about all things beauty and beyond. I'm Amy and I'm so glad you decided to join me today as I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of what I read in the month of July. There were definitely some hits and some misses for sure, so stay tuned to avoid the really bad ones. I love to read physical books and audiobooks. The month of July was a really busy month for me. In July, my family and I traveled for 12 hours to Missouri, and that was one way, 12 hours, to interview at a church. The good news is that church worked out, so we were going to be moving, a very, very big move. So I spent the month of July doing that traveling and packing, getting ready for a yard sale, and we had to move my mother-in-law to a different part of Texas. So I didn't really have time to sit down and read an actual book a lot. So out of all of the books that I read one physical book and seven audiobooks. That's a new record for me. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to do it a little differently this time, where I'm going to kind of do like some good ones and some bad ones, and we're just going to kind of like mix it in. So you got to make sure that you stay tuned so that you can find out the best one and one of the worst ones that I read this month. So let's go ahead and get started with a really cool book. I would say one of the most surprising things that I learned about myself this month is that I really like horror books. I read one book that was officially a horror book, and then another one I think that could maybe gonna go that way. The one official one that I read was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was a really surprising book, and I knew from just like the opening monologue from the author, like the author's note or whatever, that I was pretty sure I was gonna like this guy because even his author's note is hilarious. I have my computer here in front of me to kind of give you some, like a really good synopsis of this book and all of the books so that you can decide whether or not this is something that you want to read. This book is actually a little bit controversial because of its portrayal of gender stereotypes. It definitely leans more towards like 1950s maybe vibes of women knowing their place, women being homemakers, women not talking back to their husbands. Kids can kind of do whatever they want. So women in this book are really sort of second fiddle. And there's a lot of controversy about how people are upset that Grady Hendrix kind of portrayed women in that way, but I feel like it was more of a satirical approach. I feel like he's writing against that and the absurdity of that philosophy. So just note on that if that's kind of a trigger for you. I personally feel like while it is infuriating at times, I don't feel like that's how he feels and how he believes. I think that that was a really important piece to the storyline, was that no one was listening to this main character, who is Patricia Campbell. She is a rock star mom and housewife, and all of a sudden one day she makes the kind of friend that you definitely want to avoid. Patricia and her mother-in-law are the only people who know who this man, this new person to their neighborhood, really is. So this book is following Patricia's journey to try to convince her family and her friends to see this man for who he really is. The big question is, can Patricia save her quaint town and her family? Read to find out. Okay, so on the opposite side of a good suspenseful novel was Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. This book wasn't bad. I just really didn't like the ending. I feel like it really kind of set itself up to be a good book. I don't know. I did not like the ending at all. This one follows a group of recently retired women who just happen to be assassins, and they work for this not like CIA kind of situation. It's called the Bureau, maybe the library, something, the museum, something, yes, something like that. So it's called the museum, and it's all very secretive. And so they've recently retired, and they all kind of go on this trip together. And one of them sits down and she realizes that she recognizes someone that's sitting next to her, and she kind of clicks in her mind, this man is here to kill me and my friends. So the book follows this journey of them trying to figure out, why is this man trying to kill us? Why are other people trying to kill us? What is this plot by our former employer to get rid of us? What did we do wrong? And other people and people that they trust have betray them along the way in their journey to find this out. I enjoyed the ins and outs of this book and the storyline and the character developments. I enjoyed the backstory of these characters and kind of learning how they came together at the beginning of their career and how they end their career together. The ending just was not really expected. Probably my favorite book this month. A book that I kind of thought, this will be good, but I had no idea I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. It's called The Maid, and it's by Nita Prose. And this one follows Molly Gray, a woman who is different than everyone else. Her grandmother was her hero, and she raised her. And her grandmother was her guide to this world, because Molly doesn't really quite understand the world and the social cues of the world. Molly's grandmother has recently died, and she's left to kind of navigate the world all on her own. Molly is an excellent maid. She has attention to detail that is second to none. This thing that makes her so different gives her the ability and the desire to make sure that everything is perfect. It's clean, it's pristine. And as she says, she loves to return her apartments back to a state of perfection. That is her main goal in her job. And so one day she's working in this building that's sort of like an apartment building for really rich, fancy people. One of the clients or the people, the tenants in the building, ends up dead. And so because Molly is, not experienced in the world and doesn't understand social things, and her grandmother is gone, she gets herself mixed up in a big mess of trouble. She's trusting the wrong people. And so the question is, she's been framed for this murder of this man. Is she going to go to jail for a murder that she didn't commit? When I was reading some of the comments and the reviews of this book, people were really mad because the author didn't call Molly what she very likely is, which is autistic. She has a lot of qualities of someone who is a neurodivergent, likely autistic person. So people were very mad. Why didn't you take this opportunity to be able to do that? And then sometimes I think, well, if an author does label a character, or, we want labels sometimes and we don't want labels sometimes. So I kind of just laughed all of those complaints off. This is her story that she wanted to tell. And I think that getting caught up in her label takes away from her story and her uniqueness. So these are the kind of the comments that I put on here. As the mother of a neurodivergent child, I loved this book. I've read some reviews from people not happy that the author didn't label Molly's quirkiness. That she was just written off as from other characters as just being weird. In my experience, as the mother of a neurodivergent person, as I watch my daughter grow up and learn social cues and norms, that things that you and I don't have to think about, much like Molly, this is exactly what people do. They stereotype and judge people that are different than them. Just like Molly was treated by her coworkers and others, people that are neurodivergent, like Molly probably is, are taken advantage of for their honesty and things like that. And so I felt like the author did a very good job of including all of those traits of someone who is likely autistic into someone that was a really wonderful character. I don't think it's necessary for Molly to be labeled. It's clear that she's different. She's different. And I think it's awesome to see that in something that I'm reading. My daughter has many of the same traits that Molly has, and I found Molly very endearing. So I like the character development of Molly, and how kind of towards the end she found someone new that she can love and trust, and her coworkers finally started to understand her for who she is at heart. It was a really good mystery. It was woven really well, character-driven story, and I think that Nita Prose developed that character, Molly Gray, into a wonderful representation of success in the workforce for someone that's probably neurodivergent. The only nonfiction book that I read this month was Becoming Free Indeed, A Story of Disentanglement from Fear, something like that, by Ginger Duggar-Volo. I have followed the Duggar family for years now. I enjoy watching the kids grow up and kind of seeing how their lives become their own, and they find their own path in life. This book really didn't disappoint in my ability to be able to understand the backstory of, Ginger Duggar-Volo. As a Christian myself, I found it heartbreaking to think about this strict ideology that the Duggar family follows, and this suffocating, rule-driven faith that she was provided in growing up, and relief for her that she was able to break away from that. I'm very happy that Ginger was able to find the freedom that Jesus offers. No strings attached. There's no rules. There's no expectations and this and that you have to do. You don't have to earn the love of Jesus. He gives it to you, and it's a gift, and it's free. And I think that she has finally discovered that freedom through, this cathartic writing of her book. The biggest surprise book that I thought I wouldn't really like, but I loved. This is the book that I thought could kind of lean towards horror. It was a little beyond a mystery, and it's Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I had heard mixed reviews about this book. Some people loved it and thought it was really great. Some people said it was predictable. So I was really hesitant to read it, but I finally gave in after hearing Lauranda Reads review this book in one of their recent videos, and I'm going to link their channel below. Lauranda Reads is two friends who review books together, so Lauranda is like a combination of their names. I really enjoy their book reviews for sure. So this book is very reminiscent of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. We have the same entanglement of murders happening and people getting knocked off one by one. Daisy Darker's family is gathered together for their grandmother's 80th birthday, so it's a very special occasion. But I think it was Halloween, so it's stormy and it's spooky, and the house is set on a hill. So it has all the ripe pickings of a really spooky book. Once this 80th birthday happens, murder quickly ensues, and everyone is scrambling to figure out who is to blame and avoid being next. The biggest surprise book that I thought that I would love, but really didn't, was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is based in the 70s, and it follows the merging of this band, The Six, and single artist Daisy Jones into this like super band kind of scenario where they've just embody everything of the 70s and love and freedom and all of that good stuff. And it's full of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so, it's got some action in it, just a little bit. But I really love Taylor Jenkins Reid. My favorite book from her by far is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I felt that was my first one to read of hers, and it's by far my favorite. I've read several of her other books, but this one is just a really hard pass for me. And it may have something to do with the format of the book. It's told in an interview kind of setting. It may be the fact that I really didn't like any of the characters. There's not one good character in the book. Maybe one, maybe Camila. But that's it. Like, all the people in the band, in my opinion, are just really unlikable people. And there's not really a whole lot of excitement. There's the sex, the drugs, and the rock and roll, but there's just no like aha moment. There's nothing that's, to me, nothing that's leading up to this big final pentacle moment where we're going to have some big secret revealed. And I rated this book a 3, but really I feel about it like a 2, but I gave it a 3 because it's Taylor Jenkins Reid and I really do enjoy her books. So I was very surprised. And I think speaking to me not liking this is I didn't even, because the whole time I'm reading it, I'm thinking I'm gonna watch the TV adaptation because I think I'm gonna like that better, because this fits better for a TV show than it does a book. I didn't even really like that. I tried to push my way through the first episode. I don't even know if I finished that. Then I skipped all the way to the last episode, and it just left me feeling highly underwhelmed. So this book was a big bust for me, and probably my least favorite book out of the whole month, out of all the 8 that I read. I was so sad. The next book, kind of creepy in a good way book, was All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. When I was reading some of the reviews after, I usually do the reviews after I have read a book. So when I was reading the reviews, apparently people were like, Ashley Flowers is a podcaster, like a murder mystery podcaster. And so people don't really like her. And so, you know, they kind of had like a biased against this book because they don't like her. This book is very reminiscent of the JonBenet Ramsey case. You have a young beauty queen who turns up dead in her home and no one seems to know what happened. She's even found dead in the basement, just like JonBenet Ramsey. You know, through this storytelling, lives are destroyed and this case goes cold. They don't know what happened. Decades later, another young girl goes missing and ends up dead too. The main character is Margot Davies, I believe, and she is a reporter that's from this town where the original girl, January Jones, and she was friends with January Jones. So Margot comes back to her hometown, help take care of her uncle, and try to find out, are these two cases related, and who is responsible for killing these little girls. This book had an ending that was a big shocker, and I feel like where all the creepiness lies in this book. It kind of like ends on a real like spine-chilling moment, which I kind of like. And to wrap us all up, the book that had a plot and ending that I craved as I was reading this book, I'm like, I really want for it to go this way, and I was so happy that it did, was The Last Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. This book follows Amber Patterson and Daphne Parrish, who, you know, their lives intersect. Amber Patterson is determined to make a name for herself, even if she has to take someone else's. Amber inserts herself into the lives of Daphne and Jackson Parrish solely for the purpose of becoming the new Mrs. Parrish. And the Parrishes are a very wealthy family, and so Amber is very jealous and does everything that she can in order to kind of kick Daphne out and become Jackson's new one and only. So the big question is, will Amber get everything she so desperately wanted in the end? Is it gonna be everything that she imagined that it would be? Those are all of the books that I read in the month of July. So far, August is going extremely slow. I still don't really have time to sit down and read a whole lot, and the audiobook that I'm listening to is not super motivating. You will hear about that one at the end of August, beginning of September. So let me know in the comments below what you think of these books if you read them, and hey, give me some love and give me a thumbs up for encouraging me to continue on with my book review each month. I'll see you later. Bye.
Damn.